The Detroit Lions are heading into what is arguably the biggest offseason in franchise history going into 2025. Flashback, in case you haven't seen, the Lions in 2024 went 15-2, were the number one seed in the NFC North. Hell, they made Sam Darnold look like a child. They put that man in a coffin, Aaron Glenn and that defense did. Week 18 to seal the NFC North and the NFC. They got the number one seed. What do you get? A bye in the playoffs. So what happens? The Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, and Dan Quinn, their head coach, walk into Ford Field, and you know what they say to the Detroit Lions? Fuck you. Aaron Glenn, too distracted about New York. Ben Johnson, too distracted about Chicago. I'm obviously being sarcastic. But what happened? The Washington Commanders whooped the Detroit Lions' ass, and it was largely because of the defense. Jared Goff had 4 turnovers, did not look good. This whole team didn't show up to play. But you walked away from that game saying, wow, the Lions need help on defense. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson was hurt. We saw that nasty leg injury against the Dallas Cowboys. Ali McNeil, their second best defensive lineman, had a torn ACL against the Buffalo Bills. Devastating injury. So injuries do play a fact, but even with those two guys, I still do not know if the Detroit Lions beat the Washington Commanders, and I'm even more unsure if they beat the Philadelphia Eagles the next week in the NFC Championship game. So the Lions have a lot of work to do this offseason to get to the Super Bowl and bring home that Lombardi. And this, my friends, in my opinion, it's not a fact, this is my opinion, is how you do it. So, first order of business and kind of the nasty work that these videos will make a little boring. We're just going to fly through it real quick. The Detroit Lions, they have a lot of free agents coming off their roster. Not a lot of them vital. There is a couple, though, and this is how I think it will turn out, and this is what I think the Lions should do with their own free agents before they hit the offseason. First off, you bring back Kevin Zeitler. He's not going to go anywhere. He possibly could, but if you look at Kevin Zeitler, had one of his best career years in Detroit at the age of 35. He's probably got 1, maybe 2 if you're pushing it, years left in the NFL. But I think Kevin Zeitler comes back to Detroit. The Lions will sign him for a 1-year, $10 million deal. Next, we're going to stick with the offensive line. A guy that's a fan favorite in Detroit. He's not the best tackle that they have on the team, but honestly, with the versatility that he has, the size that he has, and the money that he's going to cost, Dan Skipper. You're going to bring Dan Skipper back home to the Detroit Lions as well. Now, a couple special teams guys. Khalil Dorsey. I think you bring him back. Not only is he the nickelback, or not nickelback, but he's a depth piece of the cornerback on the outside, but amazing special teamer. Special teamer, he's going to make his money's worth. So I have no problem bringing him back. Another guy that's going to be a special teamer, but will also rotate on that defensive line, Al-Quadid Muhammad. This guy came out of nowhere last year for the Detroit Lions. He was on the Chiefs for a little while, was on the Colts for a little while. Then he was sitting on the couch. Brad Holmes goes, well, we need defensive linemen. Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. We got to get pressure. And they brought in Al-Quadid Muhammad, and he kind of fit that role that the Lions and the Lions fans wanted James Houston to be. He wasn't that good against the run. He's a slimmer guy, but he's got a lot of twitch, a lot of bend, and he'll get to the quarterback. Against the Bears, he had a couple huge sacks, and I think just putting him as your rotational guy on the defensive line, a little bit of burst, special teams guy, bring him back. And another defensive lineman that I thought needs to come back is Pat O'Connor. Again, he's just a depth piece, but when you saw Pat O'Connor on the field, he showed you some life, and he's only going to require a vet minimum contract. So when you bring him there, when you bring in Pat O'Connor, kind of add some depth to the defensive line there. Flipping over to the offensive side of the football, Tim Patrick. Wow. I love Tim Patrick. I fell for the Tim Patrick experience the second he stepped foot in Detroit. Going back to the Broncos, the man hardly ever dropped a football. The problem was injuries. He had back-to-back major injuries. Comes to Detroit, and he slides right in that wide receiver 3 role where people were expecting Donovan Peoples-Jones to step up. He didn't. Tim Patrick did, and I think he stepped up in massive ways. Great big body to have on the perimeter if you want to throw up a jump ball. Really good at blocking, and at the end of the day is just consistent. Again, not going to cost a lot of money. So you bring him back on a 1-2-year deal worth $2 million, however you want to slate it, but bring Tim Patrick back for cheap. The rest of the guys, honestly, we are being completely real. When you look at the Ifeanyi Melifonwus, Carlton Davis, I would love to bring back. Now, here's where we're going to hit a little snag in the road. Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis is absolutely a corner I would love to bring back to the Detroit Lions. Do not get me wrong. I think, without a doubt, he steps foot in Ford Field week 1 next year. He's the best corner that they have. I like the upside of Terrion Arnold, but he still has a long way to go until he proves he's a number 1 corner in the NFL. Carlton Davis is, But again, injuries are there. So he does not know how much longer he has left in the NFL. And if he re-signs with Detroit, he's not going to be making a lot of money compared to the other market value guys that will be in the around the NFL. When you look at Tre'Davious Ward, he's probably going to be making more money if he does not sign with Detroit. And Carlton Davis, if he wants to go explore somewhere, chances are he's going to find more money, and he already has a Super Bowl ring. So would it be nice to chase a Super Bowl? Absolutely, but he already has one. It's time to get a lot of money and go into retirement afterwards. So I think Carlton Davis leaves. I think he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he gets a bag in Florida where he's from. Carlton Davis, I do not expect to be back in the Detroit Lions next year. While I would love to have him here, I don't think it happens. So Carlton Davis is gone. Ife Melifonwu, great player last season. Not talking about the season that just happened the year before. Looked like an all-pro level guy for 7 games. I mean, the stretch that Ife Melifonwu had was ridiculous. The problem was the man can't stay healthy. Even in training camp this year, he got hurt. And he might not command top dollar, but when you look at free agency, when you look at where this team needs to improve, it's on the offensive line, it's on the defensive line, and it's at the cornerback spot. And when you keep Ife Melifonwu, I think you're putting in money to a safety room that already has Brian Branch, that already has Kirby Joseph. And we've seen Brad Holmes draft safeties before. So in my opinion, Ife Melifonwu, good, solid player. I'm moving off of him because of injuries concerns. I'm not putting any more money if I'm Brad Holmes into a player that's an injury liability. You're here to win a Super Bowl, not risk guys that are on injury contracts. I don't see many moves like this around the NFL from the other contenders. Another player that I think falls very similar in the Ifeatu Melifonwu role is linebacker Derek Barnes. Derek Barnes, again, is not a player that I think is bad, is terrible, is a bust. He was a 3rd-round pick, maybe 4th-round pick out of Purdue. He was a solid player, but again, injuries after injuries after injuries after injuries. He had some good moments, has some bad moments. At the end of the day, I think it is best for the Detroit Lions and Derek Barnes to part ways and see the grass that is greener for each side. I think if Derek Barnes is a player you can replace and improve on, that is huge for this front 7. So Derek Barnes, Ife Melifonwu, Carlton Davis, Levi Onwuzurike, another player I'm letting walk. All the guys that I did not name before. Kevin Zeitler, Dan Skipper, Khalil Dorsey, Al-Quadin Muhammad, Tim Patrick, Pat O'Connor, I'm not bringing back. I understand that there's a lot of guys, they're going to bring back guys for the practice squad. I'm talking about the key players here, the players that will actually be on the field, not just purely depth guys. I know I brought up Pat O'Connor, but when you talk about moving off of Levi Onwuzurike, people are going to ask, well, what are you going to do to solidify that? You bring in Pat O'Connor, you're going to replace Levi Onwuzurike with an upgraded free agent or a rookie. Who will that be? We're going to get to here in a second. You're going to find out right now. All right, this is where this video is about to get fun, okay? This is phase 2, I would say. This is when you're entering NFL free agency. You're going to acquire other free agents. You're also going to enter the NFL draft very soon. We're going to start off with free agency, though. So first off, the name that we were just talking about, Levi Onwuzurike. The Lions have DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil. We brought up Aleem McNeil. He's probably going to be coming off the injury still, not going to be ready week 1. So you got to go get a guy that can play week 1 and has depth at piece as well. I think when you look at Mekhi Wingo, Josh Pascal, sure, you can find a tweener that can fit in there, but I think go get yourself an actual defensive tackle. Not a huge difference maker, but a legit player. And when I look at the New York Jets, Aaron Glenn, obviously fellow friends with the Detroit Lions. I'm sure they're going to be in a lot of talks this offseason. I look at a player who was playing there last year and gave you 5 sacks, was a 1st-round pick for the San Francisco 49ers, didn't pan out. The Jets gave him a prove-it deal, and he started in all 17 games and played in all 17 games. No injuries, and that was his big thing. That is Javon Kinlaw. And I think you bring in Javon Kinlaw for 2 years, $18 million. He's a younger player, so he has a chance to develop a little bit more, and he's coming off his career best year. So when the Jets signed him, it was a prove-it deal, and he proved it in New York. With Quentin Williams right there, I understand absolutely. So it's going to make his life easier. But you look at the Detroit Lions, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil. We're going to get into that edge room here in a little bit. And then DJ Reader as well. So he's not going to have to be the number 1 guy on the inside. He's going to be the guy that holds his own, win one-on-ones, and put pressure on the quarterback. And after last season, I definitely think that Javon Kinlaw is a guy that can do that. Number 2, we talked about Derek Barnes. It's time to replace Derek Barnes. And who do you do that with? one of the most underrated linebackers in football, and that is Nick Bolton, the linebacker out of Kansas City. Super Bowl champion. He's a guy that, remember, the Lions run a 4-3 now, so he's not going to be a guy that's coming off the edge consistently, but he has the ability to be good in pass coverage. He has the ability to get to the quarterback, and he flies sideline to sideline. When you bring in Nick Bolton to a linebacker room that already has Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell, I think that is a probably top 3 linebacker room in the NFC. I'd have to look what Philadelphia does after this. But I think when you have that outside of the San Francisco 49ers, Fred Warner, okay, that's number one. But the Lions put themselves in a position where you have a very, very solid to potentially elite linebacking room, depending on what Jack Campbell does next year. Another guy, this is somebody that I previously mentioned in this video. The cornerback is also a huge weakness for this team. You saw it last year when Amik Robertson went down after Carlton Davis went down, and you had basically Terrion Arnold as your cornerback one, Kindle Vildor out there like we saw last year in the NFC Championship game. We saw Terrion Arnold and Kindle Vildor in the NFC Divisional game. I understand that injuries were a problem, but I'm tired of seeing Kindle Vildor in the playoff games. The most important game of the year is out there for you. So Carlton Davis, like we said, he's walking. He's probably going to go get a bag somewhere, in my opinion. So you have to replace him. In my opinion, I don't want to do it with another 30-year-old corner, 28 to 30-year-old corner that you're going to have to pay a bag to, that really, when you look at his last year, was okay. You're trying to get the younger version of him back. I don't want to go down that road. Give me a guy that has potential, that has shown you proven talent in the NFL. And ironically, there's one down in New Orleans where Dan Campbell is from, where half this coaching tree was from, basically, when you look back at where this coaching tree started as. And that's Paulson Adebo. Paulson Adebo is a guy that can play on the outside, has been proven year in and year out that he is a good NFL cornerback. The problem is last year had a devastating leg injury against the Denver Broncos, making a tackle, looked like his leg broke. I don't know what happened. Played 7 games, missed the rest of the season. But he has been productive. He's been a consistent interception maker, and you can put him on the outside. He's 25, 26 years old, and you're somebody that with Terrion Arnold, Paulson Adebo, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, I think that is a good enough secondary to win you a Super Bowl. I understand that Paulson Adebo is not a lockdown number one, but when you look at Paulson Adebo and you compare him to Carlton Davis over the last 2 years, there's an argument to be made, injuries aside, but you had Carlton Davis who got hurt as well, that Paulson Adebo was the better corner, and he was in a worse situation. So give me Paulson Adebo to replace Carlton Davis.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested, or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, FisherCTSports.com.